I'm concerned about some trends that we're noting. The census report that birth rate in America is going down. Fewer children are being born in this country. And I ask a basic question, what does that say about our country and about our future? What it tells me is that raising a family, for many, is a struggle. They have to work to bring money home, and they want to have the peace of mind when they go to work that their kids are safe. That's not a radical suggestion, and the solution isn't socialism. The solution is just caring, whether you care about it. President Joe Biden does. And he has suggested, as part of his plan for American families, that the wage earners don't have more than 7 or 8% of their income dedicated to daycare. I don't think that's radical. I think it's realistic. It says they have some skin in the game, some investment in their own part, but they have affordable daycare available to them. Now, the Republicans say we're all about infrastructure. We want to build the best highways, I do too, the best bridges, the best airports and such, so that Americans in business can move from one place to another. Sign me up. That's basic infrastructure, and I agree with it. But if I have the best highway from my home to a good place of employment and still can't find affordable daycare, many people, especially women who are out of work, can't buy into this infrastructure investment. That's not radical. Socialism, to give a mother a helping hand so that she has a safe place to leave her child during the course of the day? And how about the other suggestions of President Biden? Is it radical socialism to suggest that we have available for all families in America, 2 additional years of training and education for children before kindergarten? I don't think it's radical. I have the best little granddaughter in the world who is going to be 2 years old in just a few days. She started her school experience already. We're proud of her. And I think it's going to help her socialize with other children, learn in a classroom atmosphere. And I'm glad she's there. And I wish every family in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois had the same option, but many cannot. President Biden thinks that's a good idea. So do I. Who would characterize that as radical socialism? 2 additional years for children before kindergarten? And here's another thing he suggests. Let's have 2 additional years after the 12th grade. The president said 2 years of community college. And is that radical socialism to expand the offering of education an additional 2 years? If you visit community colleges and see what's going on there, you realize that many young people are making really life-changing decisions about their careers and their future. Radical socialism? I don't think so. I think most families would say it's just common sense. It's not radical. And it's not socialism that the government gives a helping hand. We've done that since the 1950s when it came to college loans. We do that today when it comes to helping school districts across this nation. Not radical, not socialism, just common sense commitment to the American family. So they can make the speeches all they wish, but that is the reality. There's been an awful lot of talk on the Senate floor about infrastructure, as I mentioned. Many of my colleagues across the aisle think it's just roads and bridges and nothing more. I think that's a priority, but I don't think that's the entire challenge. When we consider infrastructure, we ought to look to the future. We should ask important, challenging questions. What kind of infrastructure investment will help us for decades to come? What does the next generation economy in America need? What tools will our children and grandchildren need to live healthy, productive, satisfying lives? Tough questions, but President Biden's American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan faces these questions honestly. Broadband, education, clean energy, paid family leave, electric vehicles, daycare. The President's plan envisions all of these things and more as the future of infrastructure. And what does that future look like in practice? I had a visit last week which was amazing, and I wanted to share just a little bit of that visit with you. Last Thursday, I visited a town in central Illinois called Normal. During my visit, I toured a new manufacturing plant, the Rivian plant, where production will begin in a few weeks on brand new electric trucks, SUVs, and delivery vans. This is not a small-scale operation. Amazon has already placed an order for 100,000 emission-free delivery vans from Rivian. 100,000. Not long ago, 6 years ago in fact, another car company, Mitsubishi, occupied the plant where Rivian is today, and they left town, putting 1,000 people out of work in the process. We were pretty down on our luck at that point and despondent about the future of that facility that sits out by Interstate 55. Guess what happened? A year later, thanks to the leadership of many people, including my friend, the mayor of Normal, Illinois, Chris Coos, he found a buyer for the old Mitsubishi plant. By the end of 2021, that plant will be back in business full scale with more than 2,500 employees producing the next generation of electric vehicles. It's a manufacturing and jobs boom in Normal, Illinois. I couldn't be more excited or happy for the people who live nearby. It was made possible by leaders and investors who refused to hang on to the past. Here was this young CEO who decided that electric vehicles had a future. He came up with that idea 5 years ago, and he's created a large class of believers. Folks in this town will tell you infrastructure is about more than roads and bridges. For them, it's about taking transportation in America to the next generation. And the President of the United States, Joe Biden, understands it. His American Jobs Plan includes a $174 billion investment in electric vehicles and charging stations. Is this some big, radical, socialist government idea? No. Listen to the major producers of automobiles in America today talk about where they think the market's headed. Every one of them is talking about electric vehicles. The funds that President Biden proposes would support the growth of companies like Rivian and accelerate the installation of charging stations across the country. I went in Normal, Illinois to a multimodal facility, Amtrak, cars, buses. They all gathered downtown in a building which I helped them build. And we went to several levels of parking in this facility, and at each level there were electric charging stations. That's the future. Imagine a future where you drive from Normal to Chicago or St. Louis or anywhere in this country without burning a drop of gasoline. This is the new normal, a place where hardworking Illinoisans produce next-generation vehicles and companies come together with local leaders to move us toward a cleaner, stronger economy. Normal, Illinois is stepping up to the plate to ensure the United States continues to lead in the global economy, even as competitors like China ramp up their own electric vehicle production. Make no mistake, if we follow the lead of the Republicans and step away from investing in electric vehicles and the training and the other elements that are necessary to develop them, the Chinese are not going to drop out of the competition. They're going to, unfortunately, be very successful at our expense. Normal isn't going it alone. All around my state, I'm proud to say, we see efforts to create this electric vehicle future. Last week, Governor Pritzker and Lion Electric announced plans to open a new electric vehicle manufacturing plant in Joliet, Illinois, a $70 million investment that will create 700 new jobs. Beginning in 2022, the plant will produce 20,000 zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicles. That means electric school buses and trucks built right in my home state. A Netherlands-based manufacturer of charging stations, EVBox, set up its headquarters in Libertyville, Illinois this past summer, and it plans to produce more than 200 fast charging stations a week. The electric transportation industry and its surrounding infrastructure already employs more than 5,000 people in my state of Illinois. And one recent report projects electric transportation employment in Illinois will grow to more than 9,500 workers in 2024. That's an 83% jump in 3 years. Illinois is poised to have a nationally important role in the development of electric vehicles. Why are the companies coming to Illinois? I have a theory. Illinois has been setting the stage for this electric vehicle revolution for years. Look at our labs, federal labs. Scientists and engineers at Argonne National Lab have pushed the boundaries of vehicle and battery technology for decades, always looking ahead. Today, their pioneering work will produce batteries that last longer, charge faster, and can be recycled safely. And look at our universities. The University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign produces some of the best engineers in America. And in Normal, you can find Illinois State University and Heartland Community College, which produce a direct pipeline of new talent to companies like Rivian. Illinois recognizes that science and research are the backbone of the economy. Our labs and universities prove it time and again. This research drives the electric vehicle industry forward, and companies want to be right in the middle of that environment. Beyond batteries, Illinois leads the way in research in clean energy technology, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and many of the other technologies we need to be part of the economy of the 21st century. President Biden understands that we need research too. His American Jobs Plan proposes a $180 billion investment in research and development for things just like electric vehicles. We have the opportunity to not only electrify, but to supercharge our future. Federal funding that matches the president's bold plan could transform more towns like Normal or Joliet into powerhouses of American manufacturing. I listen to the Republicans on the other side say, we shouldn't spend so much. We shouldn't spend it on so many things that might affect our future. We ought to take it easy, take it slow, wait and see what happens. I couldn't disagree more. The Republican plan is a solid strategy for second place in the world. I don't want to be part of an effort to bring the United States second in any competition in the world. We may not always be first, but we should always strive to be first. Stepping away from President Biden's plan for manufacturing and jobs and families is unfortunately an easily predicted outcome. We will not be able to succeed and create the jobs of the future. I will continue to support robust, sustained funding for electric vehicle infrastructure and innovation. I hope that both parties will. I hope my colleagues will join me in thinking in a big way about the future of America when it comes to the economy and infrastructure. I've seen the kind of future this thinking can create in Normal, Illinois last week, and it's a bright one. Mr. President, I ask consent the statement I'm about to make to be placed in a separate part in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. The American Rescue Plan was the Biden threshold initiative to bring to America what it desperately needed after this president was sworn in on January 20th of this year. Unfortunately, we didn't have a single Republican to support it, not one. Not a single Republican senator or House member would support the American Rescue Plan of President Joe Biden. What did the plan do? Well, it bought more vaccines. It invested dramatically in the distribution of these vaccines across America. It turned around and kept the President Trump promise of a cash payment of $1,400 for each individual. It extended unemployment benefits so that people could continue to keep food on the table and pay their rent, mortgage payments until they found good jobs. And it basically said to small businesses, we're not giving up on you. We're going to help you, whether it's the restaurant industry or other businesses. We want you to be back in business. We invested that money as a nation, and it was a critical time to do it. President Biden believed, and all the Democrats supported him in this belief, that we should move forward now or run the risk of falling behind in developing our economy. The American Rescue Plan was successful. It's given assistance across the board to families and businesses, delivered resources where they were needed the most. It really matched the crisis with an initiative that was significant in scope. But if my Republican colleagues had had their way, the American Rescue Plan would look a lot more like the giant corporate giveaway, because all throughout 2020, they were clamoring for a massive handout to big businesses in the form of liability immunity. I'm glad that my colleague from Texas is on the floor because it's an issue that he's been interested in and spoken on the floor many times. All last year, we heard from the other side of the aisle that Congress needed to give sweeping federal liability immunity to corporations when it came to their conduct during the pandemic. Well, we heard some dire warnings. The number of lawsuits that were going to be filed because of COVID-19, it was called a tsunami of lawsuits by the Republican leader of the Senate. 1 year ago today, on May 11th, 2020, Senator McConnell spoke on the Senate floor and raised fears of, quote, a second job-killing epidemic of frivolous lawsuits. The next day, he came to the floor and kept the attack on, and he called it, quote, a tidal wave of medical malpractice lawsuits. That's from Senator McConnell on the floor of the Senate. Senate Republicans rallied behind a bill introduced by Senator Cornyn that would give corporations immunity from accountability, both in court and from regulation, for conduct that could be considered negligent under current law. I argued against these corporate immunity proposals. Granting corporations legal immunity gives them an incentive to cut costs and cut corners when it comes to the health and safety of workers and consumers. It gives a pass to unreasonable, irresponsible behavior and puts people at greater risk. I don't think that's the right approach. As I kept pointing out to my Republican colleagues, they couldn't show statistically why this was necessary. The data never justified their proposals. That tsunami of lawsuits never arrived. We are now over a year into this pandemic. Over 32 million Americans, sadly, have been infected, and nearly 600,000 tragically have died. So how many lawsuits have been generated by all of these terrible outcomes? Well, there's a law firm, Hutton, Andrews, and Kurth, that has tracked all the lawsuits filed in the United States over COVID-19. I checked their totals over the weekend. You may be asking, well, how many medical malpractice cases have been filed in the United States over the last year related to COVID-19? The number? 20. 20. And how many cases alleging personal injury from exposure to COVID-19 in a public place have been filed? 60 in the entire United States. That's not a flood. That's not a tsunami. It's a trickle. In fact, the main litigation we've seen involving COVID has been one business suing another business. For example, 1,831 lawsuits involving insurance disputes, 640 lawsuits involving business closures, stay-at-home orders, 772 lawsuits involving contract disputes, not what was predicted on the floor over and over again by senators from the other side of the aisle. I'm always troubled how the Republican immunity proposals try to block infected workers and families from suing corporations for negligence, but let corporations continue to file their own COVID-related lawsuits by the hundreds whenever they feel like it. How is that fair? I believe America deserves a chance to have a day in court when these families believe their loved ones have been harmed due to negligence or misconduct. For example, if a senior citizen dies because a nursing home refused to share what it knew about the virus's spread, I believe the families of those victims deserve a chance to go to court and seek justice. Those types of cases are traditionally governed by state law. States can and do adjust their state liability law to fit the circumstances. As it turns out, more than half the states have changed their liability laws, either through legislation or executive action in response to COVID. In my view, some of the states went too far, I'll be honest with you, in shielding negligent behavior by corporations. But that was their call to make, since this is a state law issue. I find it surprising my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want Congress to step in and impose sweeping federal corporate immunity that would override the laws of all 50 states. There was no justification for doing so, and I'm glad we didn't. It would have made us less safe. I hope the next time we hear calls for sweeping federal liability immunity during a national crisis, we remember this experience and how the dire predictions of tsunamis and floods of lawsuits never came to pass. Let's continue to address this virus with targeted relief, much like the American Rescue Plan did. And as we emerge from the pandemic, let's invest in the areas that actually need support. That's why Democrats support President Biden again with the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan, targeting investments to help the American economy. Like President like President Biden said last month, we've got to build our economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not from the top down. Giant corporations don't need another handout like immunity. They already have all the help they need. I hope we can work together to deliver real relief to American people, and I yield the floor.